Thank you very much for being here. So during preparation, my husband made sure not to say that I am a PhD student and a resident at this time, as I'm not, because I'm a stay-at-home mom with two, desperately trying to be a PhD student and doing some research as well. But I work at the pediatric center here at Semmelweis University. And our research projects started in 2021 when we saw in our pediatric emergency department that more and more children came with their lingering symptoms, probably connected to their acute COVID disease. You can see that our background slide is quite empty because we didn't really know anything about this. So that's why we chose to start an outpatient clinic and also a registry to help the scientific community and our patients as well. So it's a prospective registry with the Réka platform, and we do regular follow-ups until 1 year. And also during the medical assessment, we do the same really thorough blood testing for every patient. So about our results, you can see that most of the children who came to our clinic were female, and they were school-aged, mostly with after a mild acute disease. They had a really high number of symptoms with a prolonged duration of more than 4 months. You can also see above mentioned the fifth most frequent symptoms of their own. Also, we asked about their functioning. They needed to compare it to before COVID and also to rate it on a 5-level scale. And you can see that almost everyone said that their functioning, like being able to get dressed or going to school or just being able to wash themselves, worsened before compared to COVID. And there was a 25% of them who had at least a moderate decrease in their functioning. And also we did a thorough medical assessment, and you can also observe that our positive finding rate during the diagnosis of exclusion was quite low compared to the decreased functioning you also saw. Interestingly, we also saw 7% of autoimmune thyroiditis amongst our patients during this assessment. So although they had an impaired functioning, symptom-related conditions were detected only in a minority, but we need to say that we didn't have a control group, and it's our Achilles tendon. And our manuscript has been accepted in last December in pediatric research. So how to continue on? We saw that 7% of autoimmune thyroiditis in children. So with Vivi, we decided to go on with this hypothesis that we should test it on a bigger cohort of children. So we did our tri-center registry analysis to see whether COVID has an effect on the thyroid gland amongst children with long COVID. Our methods were we had a study period for 1 year, and we followed them up and collected data connected to thyroid symptoms. And we included 303 children from our department. I only show you the data from our department's findings, and you can see that we find a 6.3% of autoimmunity and 4.7% of autoimmune thyroiditis confirmed by the ultrasound in our cohort. We also followed them up, and interestingly, these changes in autoimmunity stayed there in 77.3% of all cases, but also we didn't have a control group. So we found a slightly higher rate of thyroid autoimmunity and autoimmune thyroiditis than the average of which the majority remained positive or even progressed into thyroiditis. But we didn't have a control group, but we think that children after COVID might be benefiting with thyroid screening, and if there is an alteration, we should do regular long-term follow-ups. Our manuscript was once rejected, and then now it's at the minor revision at the European Journal of Pediatrics. We also started to do more research, and we wanted to see if there is a neutrophilic dysfunction behind this condition. And we didn't have controlled group studies before, so we started one, and we saw that their children with LC had more symptoms and a worse quality of life compared to children who does not have this condition. And we also saw differences in their neutrophil granulocyte functioning. Our manuscript is under writing. We also started to investigate smell and taste disturbances with Anna, who is here. And we saw that amongst children who came to our clinic, there was a higher percentage of having taste and smell disturbances at the acute infection, but it considerably decreased over the 1-year follow-up period. We also wanted to see if these symptoms are connected with weight loss, and we saw a positive connection of weight loss with taste disturbances. Also, we wanted to help our children, so we offered them combined therapy of olfactory training, A vitamin drops, and nasal steroids. And we asked them after 1 month if they see any difference in their symptoms, and we saw that their compliance rate was really low, only 42%. And you can see that they did different kinds of therapy. Only 12 children did the combined therapy from our cohort, but we saw that there is a 10-fold chance for reporting better symptoms after 1 month of therapy compared to none. Our manuscript is in progress with the writing. And also, in the framework of this program, we started to do a meta-analysis. We wanted to compare the efficacy, safety, and the cost of 2 different therapeutical modalities, and we saw that we only wanted to use randomized active control trials. After the systematic search and selection, we saw that there is no difference in the odds for having confirmed influenza between the nasal and the injectable form of influenza vaccination. And we also did a really thorough safety analysis, and we didn't see any difference based on adverse events, mortality, and so on between the 2 forms. And also, the only safety outcome for which we found a significant difference was runny nose, because there were more runny nose after the nasal influenza vaccination. So we could say that the nasal influenza vaccine should be the preferable form for children, but it's only based on data from the trivalent vaccine. But now we are more frequently use the quadrivalent, and there are no or really few randomized active controls trials based on the quadrivalent vaccine. Our manuscript has been once rejected, and now we reanalyzed it, and we want to publish it in JAMA Network Open. So here you can see our research group's scientific work in the past 2 years. And you suggested to show other activities. We performed more than or around 30 lectures in the past 2 years. And these are my other activities, as said before. And thank you. This is our research group. Research means that you don't know, but you are willing to find out. Thank you.
thank you very much for presenting these very actual topics, because it's not only one topic, which is now open for discussion. And I have only one remark. You told us that you didn't have a control group. It's a pity, but it's difficult to have. But you know, you surely know data about it in the literature. How is the frequency and the incidence of this inflammatory thyroid disease? Are those comparable with your results or not?
So, based on the thyroid autoimmunity, there are no data on children. So our data will be the first bigger cohort. But what we could do, that we searched for a Hungarian pre-pandemic control, but we didn't find any because there are no. But from Europe, we find several ones, like for thyroid autoimmunity. From Russia, it was only 0.6%, so it's differed a lot. And from Finland, which was around 4%. For the autoimmunity, which was first 12% for us, then 7%. And for thyroid, for autoimmune thyroiditis, it was from Spain, it was 2.5%, and no, it's from Greek, and from Spain it was 3.5%. So that's why we could only say that we saw a slightly elevated incidence.
Congratulations. Thank you for teaching me about long COVID with thyroid. Are there any adult studies on long COVID with thyroid? I didn't hear that.
Yes, there are a lot. Actually, they saw an elevation, but the problem is the same, that now we are not able to find any control groups because almost everybody had COVID. That was the same problem for us as well with the controlled study, that we had altogether 42 patients who willed to come to our department, and most of them didn't know they had COVID. But after being tested, we discovered that they were. So another option, what the scientific community is discussing is, can we wait for a post-pandemic control? So children who was born way past after COVID.
Maybe it could be checked in a blood bank, which was taken before.
Yes, actually, we are really hopeful that there was a thorough Hungarian blood checking at the start of the pandemic, and we are hoping that they might actually help us to test these levels.
Yes, it was very interesting, but I have to ask again a technical question. So I see that you highlighted that your result is expressed with a 95% level for your confidence interval. What does it mean that this is 95%?
You mean the meta-analysis? Or
anywhere, yes, for example, in the meta-analysis.
So it's a tricky technical question, that our results will be within the chance for our results to be correct is 95%.
I would also have a question. Congratulations for your work. If I remember correctly, it was your second project regarding the COVID and thyroid function. So I've seen that there were 3 patients who previously were diagnosed with the thyroid disorder. So do you know anything about these patients? How did COVID affect their symptoms or thyroid functions?
Yes, it did not affect it.
Yeah, we had an international lecturer actually, from Belgium, and then he is a great expert of COVID, and then he showed some figures on the infection rate, and then there were multiple peaks, including a peak actually this year, which was, the surprise to me. He also said, most of the patients, as you said actually, that, so there are no symptoms anymore. No direct symptoms, but how about post-COVID on these patients? Do we know about those who actually did not even discover that they had it, or the physicians didn't discover, but maybe the post-COVID symptoms could come up. So is this something what we should actually look for in the future, both in children and adults?
Well, it's a complicated question, because my main thought is that no, because there are lots of other viruses that can prolonged and lingering effects. Some of them had or could have similar effects like COVID did. So we don't really check for those, or we need to like discover a new method for, like, we all know that that diabetes can come up after a viral infection, but we don't really know which viral infection, or it was a viral infection, or it was a consequence of a genetic background which met the virus. So for now, I wouldn't say that we should. And if I was right, you asked if the control group who had been through COVID but didn't know. Yes, actually, it was really funny, because there were children. I know it's not directly an answer to your question, but to see how families react to questions like this, I remember that there was this boy who came after COVID, but without long COVID symptoms. And when we were discussing their answers, he said that, yes, during training, I was breathless after. And her mother said that, no, you are not. Yes, I am. No, you are not. So they are sometimes not really discussing these things, and it really differs between children, like who is caring about their problems based on taste disturbances, like who is this, which child will say anything about today I don't like yogurt because I had COVID, or today I don't like yogurt because I'm in that mood. So it's challenging.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is very similar to the previous one. I'm curious to how did you define long COVID? Is there a defined set of symptoms at the moment? And also the patients that you enrolled, how long ago did they have the COVID? Do we have any information on this?
Yes, sure. So defining what we don't know. Firstly, we had the NICE guideline. They said that long COVID is, the acute COVID is actually for 4 weeks, and everything after is long COVID. There is an ongoing symptomatic phase for 12 weeks and then post-COVID. And they said that it might be the same for children, but we don't know. So for adults, but yeah, it can be applicable for children as well. And then there is multiple organizations who tried to answer this question. So I actually needed to hold a lecture online about this. So the CDC, everyone tried to post-acute consequences, like it's a different mixture of, especially for adults, it's like the post-ICU syndrome. So there are lots of different answers for your questions, but in October 2021, there was a Delphi consensus on a research definition for long COVID, which can be applicable for children as well. Yes. And there was another question that how much time? It differed a lot, because at first it depended on also, I think, after how many time we discovered that this is a problem. So when we started the clinic, it was a longer period of time, because they waited a lot, like it was a year or more than a year, because they didn't know it might be connected. But then more and more information came, and they thought that maybe it can be connected. But now everybody has long COVID, whom we don't know what their problem is. So they don't have to wait a lot. Sometimes they come after 1 week, and we should say that, sorry, you should wait. But we understand.
And thank you very much, and congratulations on your great research work and the numerous projects you are taking part in. My question would be about that in one project you mentioned that you provide olfactory training for children. And I just wanted to ask that, can you go a bit more detail in how it is conducted, or is it any different compared to the adult interventions, or is it personalized to children to get them more involved?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I think that is the main problem with the compliance, that it's the same as for adults. So for lots of weeks, at least 6 or 8 weeks, you need to do olfactory training twice a day with at least 5 different odors, trying to smell it and try to remember how it was. So try to imagine it for like a 4 or 5-year-old. Try to imagine. And they don't really like to do this. Like, this is the same as mothers really want them to do it. But like if you are a 17-year-old boy who I met, they are really not interested in. When they have really severe problems, they are a lot more motivated. But those are a little percentage of all. Like, it was like 3% who couldn't go to school because she couldn't stand to sit in the class next to the others. She was really motivated. She tried to modify the olfactory training a lot with their mom. And we also got the suggestion to try odors to which she is connected emotionally, positively and negatively, because maybe the memory it's coming back more quickly, but it didn't really. So, yeah.
So thank you very much. One conclusion that we could have from your presentation is that COVID is not the same as it was at the beginning. It's changing, I think, with the mutations. With the referral, there were shutdowns at the beginning, so they came lately. Now they can come when they want. So, and there were also the vaccinations. Did you check the effect of vaccinations, maybe?
Yes, actually, I just didn't have time, but the thyroid paper, its title is The End of It and the Effect of Vaccination. We had 2 different ideas. If vaccination can have a preventive role or a pathogenic role in developing autoimmune conditions. So we compare them based on the time of vaccination, if it was before the acute infection. But if you remember, the vaccination rate is really low in children. It was not there at the beginning. It was quick in May, if I remember, but we didn't see any connection with either a preventive or a pathogenic role in our cohort.
So in your third project, if you can go back there, I have seen 2 plots next to each other, 2 different plots. Yes, here. Why use different representation of the data for these 2 figures?
Actually, we chose the second one with the quality of life and functioning to better visualize the personal differences between children, to say the same thing, that there were children with just smell problems and they didn't really care about it, just their mother wanted to come, or father, sorry. And there were children with like 33 different symptoms and they couldn't even wash themselves, so it's just a matter of visualization.
Yes, I really like your second plot. I don't know why you not use the similar one.
Yeah, actually, as you questioned it, it would be the same for the other one with the number of symptoms.